Why do I freak out when it's not a big deal? Everyone else is fine and I'm over here just losing my shit. Hey there, friend. Welcome back to the Holistic Trauma Coach podcast. Today's question is such a good one. Why do I get overwhelmed by normal stress? I love this question. Let's just talk about what that really looks like, because this question usually doesn't even surface until someone feels like they're at their wit's end. Most people don't even feel safe bringing this question out into the open. For so many people, it stays tucked away as a private, internal experience, something they quietly wonder about, but don't feel safe to ask aloud. And so even though this is a one-sided conversation, it's just me here talking to you, I want to show up as a stand-in for that supportive person you might not have. I want to validate you. I want to take this question, this very real, very human question, and bring it out of your inner landscape into the light. Because this is a valid question. This is a real experience. And most importantly, it's common. It's not something that just you are experiencing. It's not something that's wrong with you. In fact, even asking this question often carries a layer of shame, doesn't it? Especially that tricky word, normal. Like, if this is normal stress, why can't I handle it? If I were normal, this wouldn't even be a problem for me. And right here, right now, that's what we're going to gently challenge. We're going to break this question down. We're going to peel back some layers because this isn't about what's wrong with you. That's not what we do here. Instead, we're going to approach this from a nervous system perspective, why your reactions might feel so different than other people's, and why it feels like normal stress tips you into overwhelm. And just so you know, we're going to take this deep. We'll start at the surface and go deeper as we go. So by the end of this episode, you'll hopefully have a much richer context for what you're experiencing. You'll get to see the bigger picture and maybe feel a little more compassion for yourself along the way. All right, let's back up a bit and start with some nervous system basics. When we talk about the nervous system here, I'm not talking about some abstract biological thing. I'm talking about your nervous system, a system that, for many of us, has been shaped by chronic stress, by trauma, by painful or unsupported experiences, especially from childhood. That's the context for this conversation. Your nervous system is this vast, literal network of nerves. It's your brain, your brainstem, your spinal column, and all these beautiful peripheral nerves running throughout your entire body. But what's so important to understand, and what I mention in pretty much every episode, is that your nervous system really only has one job: to keep you safe. That's it. Its sole evolutionary purpose is to keep you alive long enough to procreate. It's not interested in your happiness, your fulfillment, or your productivity, or just your survival. So when we think about your nervous system and how it manages safety, I want you to imagine that your body is like the dedicated caretaker of a particularly fussy houseplant. Your nervous system's job is to keep this plant, you, alive and thriving for as long as possible. And as the caretaker, you're constantly scanning for signs to know whether the plant is doing well or if something's wrong. If you see wilting leaves, that's a sign the plant needs water. If you notice yellowing leaves, maybe there's too much water or poor drainage. If the stems lose firmness, maybe you need to adjust the lighting. You're always looking for these little indicators that help you decide what adjustments are needed to keep the plant healthy. Your nervous system works in a similar way, just infinitely more sophisticated and intricate. It's scanning for all kinds of indicators in your body and environment to determine if you're safe or in danger. When your nervous system registers that you're inside the window, what we call the window of capacity, also sometimes called the window of tolerance or the window of presence, then it reads those signals as I'm okay right now. Within that window, even if you're experiencing stress or challenge, your system can say, I've got this. But just like your plant, when enough signs of distress show up, the nervous system reads that as, I need to act to protect myself. In this case, your nervous system begins adjusting, activating stress responses, releasing stress hormones, bracing the body, doing whatever it thinks it needs to do to keep you safe. The key thing here is that this window isn't about the absence of stress. It's about the ratio, the balance between indicators of safety and indicators of danger. You could be experiencing something challenging or even stressful, but as long as your system perceives enough safety around you or within you, it will stay inside the window of capacity. You can stay connected to yourself and others, stay creative, stay capable. But when the ratio tips, when your body starts picking up more signals of danger than signals of safety, that's when your nervous system goes, nope, not okay anymore, and starts mobilizing survival strategies. And so much of this happens far below conscious awareness. Your nervous system is not sitting there consulting you like, hey, do you feel like you can handle this? It's running its own constant, automatic, sophisticated tallying process. It's checking in on what's happening inside your body and outside in the environment, and it's making decisions about your safety, moment to moment. That's the framework I want you to have in mind as we keep going. This idea of your nervous system as a vigilant caretaker, watching for signs that your plant is healthy and thriving, or signs that it needs immediate attention to survive. Before we continue, if you are resonating with what I'm saying here, I'd love for you to subscribe to my bi-weekly newsletter, A Soft Landing. This is where I share bite-sized insights, nervous system wisdom, and gentle encouragement to help you find your footing, especially on those days where the world feels like too much. It's free, it's tender, and it's written for those of you who want to move through life at a more human pace. You can subscribe anytime at theholistictraumacoach.com/email. Now back to the episode. So now that we've got this image of your nervous system as this vigilant caretaker, this attentive plant parent watching for signs of health or distress, let's get a little clearer about what it actually looks like when you're inside your window of capacity versus when you've tipped outside of it. When you're inside your window of capacity, your nervous system reads enough cues of safety that you can stay present even if something stressful is happening. And this is key. Being in your window doesn't mean everything's calm and easy and beautiful. It means your body has enough information, enough indicators of safety, that it can tolerate whatever is happening without triggering a full-blown survival response. In real life, this might look like hanging out with a friend you trust, sitting by a peaceful lake, enjoying nature. That sounds obvious, but it can also look like being in the middle of a heated argument with your partner, yet still feeling your feet on the ground, staying connected to your breath, listening with curiosity to what they're saying, and feeling capable of expressing what you need to say. So it's not about being happy or stress-free. It's about being regulated enough, even when things are hard, that you can access your full range of tools: connection, curiosity, creativity, compassion. You might feel stressed, but you're able to meet that stress from a place of presence. But then there's what happens when you start sliding toward the edge of that window and eventually fall outside it. When you're outside your window of capacity, it's a totally different internal experience. Let's use the example of an argument with your partner. Maybe at first you're having a heated discussion, but you can still track yourself. You're aware of your feelings, aware of your body, aware of what's being said. But then at some point, and sometimes this shift can happen lightning fast, your nervous system goes, nope, too much danger here, not enough safety, we're out. What does that look like? Your body tenses up, your shoulders tighten, your hands might form fists. You start leaning forward aggressively, your heart pounds, your breathing becomes shallow or fast. Mentally, you stop really hearing what your partner is saying. It's like they're talking from far away. Or you get tunnel vision and don't feel like you can really see anything outside of the argument. Think of witnessing a screaming couple in the middle of a parking lot, oblivious to all the people around. You stop being curious or reflective or creative. Instead, there's just this driving urgency to attack, to win, to dominate the conversation, to protect yourself. At that point, it's almost like your nervous system has taken the wheel completely. The part of you that could collaborate or empathize or think flexibly is offline. Your body is in survival mode. And when you pause and check in with your body in a moment like this, you'd probably notice a whole bunch of danger indicators. Racing heart, tension in the face and neck, clenched jaw or fists, leaning forward aggressively, heat rising in your face, maybe even a fogginess or a blankness in your mind. That classic blackout rage feeling. And when you ask, where are my indicators of safety right now? Well, you might find there are none. Your nervous system isn't registering anything safe in that moment. It's gone into full self-protection mode. Here's where this ties back to that plant metaphor again. Just like a caretaker knows that when the plant is wilting or the leaves are turning yellow, something needs to change. Your nervous system reads all these danger cues as a call to action. Something needs to happen right now to help me get back inside my window of capacity. Maybe that means taking a break, creating physical distance, breathing deeply, grounding yourself, seeking support. Whatever helps your system find its way back toward a sense of okayness. But here's where it gets tricky for a lot of people. When you're outside your window, your body's not waiting for you to intellectualize or analyze what's going on. It's not looking for a cognitive explanation. It's already acting to protect you. That's why it's so hard to just calm down or just relax when you're dysregulated. Telling yourself to calm down is about as useful as yelling at the plant. Stop wilting. It's not going to work unless the conditions shift. So when we look at this through the lens of your nervous system, it starts to make sense why a moment of conflict, even a minor disagreement, can tip you into overwhelm if your body reads that conflict as danger. And why all the advice in the world about keeping your cool just doesn't land in that moment. Your system needs something else. It needs cues of safety. And this is where so many of us get stuck in self-judgment. Because from the outside, it can look like you're just being too sensitive or overreacting. But from the inside, from your body's perspective, it's completely appropriate behavior given the signals it's receiving. If you want to take this work deeper and practice together, I also offer live online group classes where we gently work with somatic practices in real time together in community. These classes are beginner-friendly, trauma-informed, and designed to meet you exactly where you are. No experience necessary, no pressure to show up any certain way. If that sounds supportive, you can view the schedule and join us anytime at theholistictraumacoach.com/class. So here's where this gets even more interesting and even more compassionate. We've talked about what it looks like to be inside or outside your window of capacity. But now we have to ask, what determines where we're at in that window in the first place? Because here's the thing, your nervous system isn't starting every day from a blank slate. For many people, especially those who've experienced trauma, chronic stress, or low support environments, especially in childhood, that window of capacity is already narrowed. And their baseline stress level is already elevated before anything happens. Let's go back to our plant caretaker metaphor for a second. Imagine you've got two plants. One is thriving. Rich soil, perfect lighting, ideal watering schedule. The other, it's been neglected, living in poor soil, maybe stuck in a drafty corner of the house with inconsistent watering. The second plant doesn't have the same capacity as the first, right? Even a small environmental shift, a little extra sunlight or a slight delay in watering can really stress it out. Whereas the first plant can tolerate less than perfect conditions before showing signs of distress. Your nervous system works the same way. Now let's bring in this tally system metaphor I like to use. Imagine your nervous system has two running tallies, one for safety indicators and one for danger indicators. A healthy, well-regulated nervous system, let's say someone without much trauma, probably wakes up most mornings with a long list of safety tallies and maybe a short list of danger tallies. They're starting from a place of general okayness. So when something stressful happens, say their neighbor knocks on the door to complain about the lawn or some other annoying as hell complaint, they're adding a few danger tallies to a system that's already filled with safety cues. The balance still leans toward safety, and they stay within their window of capacity. They can still feel their body, their steadiness, and they can respond to the neighbor from a place that says, I'm capable of handling this pain in the ass. But someone who's lived through trauma, someone whose nervous system was shaped by chronic stress, they're waking up every day with a big pile of danger tallies already stacked up, even before the day begins. So when that same neighbor knocks on their door and complains about their yard, they're not just adding a few danger tallies to a blank slate. They're tipping an already imbalanced system over the edge. That's the key here. It's not about how much stress the event itself brings. It's about what baseline you're starting from. And this brings me to my favorite humbling, squirmy little personal story, my ham sandwich moment. Years ago, this is like 16 years ago now, I was dating my now husband. I was working at the newspaper at the time, busy, stressed, overwhelmed, and in complete denial of my extreme childhood abuses. I hadn't eaten, I was starving, and he offers this incredibly sweet gesture. Hey, I'll bring you lunch at work. So he heads out on his lunch break to pick something up for me. But this is before the era of smartphones glued to our hands. I didn't see his messages asking what I wanted. So he just makes an educated guess. He brings me back this ham and something sandwich. And when I unwrap that sandwich, I hate it. Like, I really hate this sandwich. And what do? I pout. I sulk, I stew, I act cold and distant and totally ruin what was supposed to be this sweet, connective moment between us. If I remember correctly, my face went hot and I was visibly irritated, ungrateful, and flustered. I told him, I hate this sandwich. Yikes. I'm gonna take a breath here. This beautiful man, he's there trying to love me. And I'm sitting there irritated, shutting down, spiraling internally. And I remember this so vividly because in the moment, even I was aware that this was a disproportionate reaction. The voice in my head was like, Jess, come on, it's just a sandwich. But my body didn't care. I couldn't access gratitude or grace or flexibility. I was just overwhelmed. And afterward, the shame spiral kicked in hard. That internal narrative. What a bitch. What's wrong with me? He was trying to do something nice and you ruined it. But here's what I understand now that I couldn't understand back then. My nervous system was already maxed out before that sandwich even entered the break room. At that point in my life, I was running on almost zero cues of safety in my body. My baseline was flooded with danger tallies. Chronic anxiety, chronic pain, chronic fatigue, regular panic attacks. I was walking around in a body that was already outside its window of capacity literally all the time. So this wasn't about the sandwich. It wasn't about whether I liked ham. It was that the small additional stress of having to navigate this awkward social moment, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. If I had been in a regulated state, if my nervous system had been filled with cues of safety, it would have been no big deal. I could have laughed it off, picked out the ham, or suggested we go grab something else together. But instead, my system couldn't bridge the gap. There just weren't enough safety tallies to keep me inside my window. And so I tipped over into overwhelm, not because I was ungrateful or selfish or dramatic, but because my nervous system genuinely didn't have the capacity to handle even that small social stressor. This is the critical distinction I want you to hear today. It's not about the size of the stressor itself. It's about the state of the system that the stressor arrives into. I'm going to say that again. Please hear me. It's not about the size of the stressor itself. It's about the state of the system that the stressor arrives into. When you're already running close to the edge, when your baseline is saturated with danger cues, even something tiny can feel like too much, because it is. So when you catch yourself judging your own overwhelm, when you hear that inner voice whispering, "What's wrong with me? Why can't I handle this? Why am I such an asshole?" I want you to pause and ask a different question. Where was my baseline before this even happened? Because that's where the real story is. Let's take a mini moment to ground. You don't have to stop what you're doing. You can keep sitting at your desk, walking outside, laying on your couch, whatever. Just pause with me for a second and check in. Take a slow breath in through your nose. No need to force a deep breath. Just whatever feels doable right now. And exhale gently through your mouth. Maybe even with a soft sigh if that feels good. Let's do that again. Inhale slowly through your nose. And exhale out your mouth. Soft, slow, maybe even audible. Now, if you can, just drop your attention down into your body for a moment. Can you feel your feet? Maybe wiggle your toes a little bit. Feel the contact of your feet on the ground or your shoes. Feel gravity holding you here. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to relax perfectly. Just notice. Here I am, in this body, right now. Let's take one more breath together. Easy, slow, no pressure. And exhale gently, letting your shoulders soften just a touch. That's it. You're here. You're doing enough. Let's keep going when you're ready. So let's talk about this word, normal. Because it sneaks into this question in such an insidious way. Why do I get overwhelmed by normal stress? And just sitting with that framing, you can already hear the self-judgment baked right in. But what exactly is normal stress? When we really break this down, what most people mean by normal stress is common, everyday, expected challenges, things that happen in life that supposedly everyone else can just roll with. And here's where I want to gently push back on that idea. Yes, of course, there are little daily stressors that everyone encounters. Traffic, bills, difficult coworkers, disagreements at home. But we have to zoom out and ask, what are we calling normal? And what does that say about the world we're living in right now? Let's take a hard look at how modern society defines normal stress. In most workplaces, you're expected to show up and perform the same, regardless of what's happening in your personal life. You could have just lost a loved one, and the company policy might give you 2 or 3 bereavement days, if you're lucky, and often unpaid. Then it's back to work, back to inbox zero, back to being on and productive. Or let's say you're a parent, and you're a single parent working 2 jobs. The expectation is that you'll still show up every day looking polished, that you still say yes to the community volunteer projects, as if your body and mind aren't carrying the weight of that immense pressure. Or maybe you're an entrepreneur scrolling Instagram and TikTok and seeing this endless parade of small business owners who somehow seem to be managing everything, posting daily, running online courses, making podcast appearances, selling out events, keeping their house looking spotless, cooking organic meals for their family, and doing it all with a perfectly curated aesthetic. And you're sitting there thinking, everyone else seems to be doing this. Why do I feel like I'm drowning? That's where this insidious cultural narrative creeps in, telling us that this pace, this constant hustle is normal, that needing rest is a failure, that asking for help is a weakness, that emotions and grief and stress should be compartmentalized so we can keep producing. It's the culture of treating humans like machines, expecting you to clock in and function at 100%, regardless of what's happening in your life. There's this cultural script that says, be efficient, be productive, don't let life slow you down. Grind now, rest later. Mind over matter. Your feelings don't belong at work. And that script has seeped so deeply into our collective consciousness that when our nervous system starts to rebel, when we start to feel exhausted, burned out, irritable, overwhelmed, we turn that frustration inward. We think, what's wrong with me? Why can't I handle what everyone else seems to be handling? But here's the truth. This isn't a problem with you. This is a problem with what we've been conditioned to believe is normal. No one is handling this. Grief is not something that can be contained in 3 bereavement days. Burnout is not something you fix with a weekend off and a bubble bath. Chronic stress is not something you override with willpower. We live in a time when overwhelm itself has become normalized. And then we shame ourselves for responding appropriately to that overwhelm. And the hustle culture perpetuated online just amplifies this. Every scroll through your feed can feel like a reminder that you're falling behind, that you're not working hard enough, not showing up consistently enough, not creating enough content, not optimizing your time well enough. But that picture isn't real. It's a highlight reel. Most people who appear to be managing it all are quietly struggling too. Their nervous systems are maxed out. Their windows of capacity are narrowing. And yet the cultural script keeps encouraging everyone to keep pushing, keep smiling, keep producing. And so when you sit there and ask, why am I overwhelmed by normal stress? I want you to take a breath and ask, is this stress actually normal? Or have we just been conditioned to believe that unrelenting pressure is normal? Because we are living in a culture that has systematically tabooed natural human nervous system reactions in service of productivity. It tells you to override your body's wisdom. It dismisses grief as an inconvenience. It pathologizes fatigue as laziness. It treats compassion fatigue and burnout as personal failures rather than symptoms of a broken system. And when you layer that on top of a nervous system that may already be carrying the weight of trauma, chronic stress, or low support from your formative years, you get this perfect storm where even a minor stressor can feel catastrophic. It's not that your nervous system is defective. It's that it's trying to navigate a world that has unrealistic, dehumanizing expectations of what it means to be functional. This is why I'm so passionate about helping people reclaim their relationship with their nervous system. Because your body's overwhelm is not a moral failure. It's not a weakness. It's a wise signal that the conditions around you are no longer supportive. The plant is begging for new conditions. In some cases, yes. The work is about tending your internal landscape, cultivating more cues of safety, expanding your window of capacity. But sometimes, and this is important, the work is also about honoring that the world around you is asking too much, and no amount of regulation can fix a toxic environment. If you're working in a corporate job that treats you like a cog in a machine, your nervous system isn't wrong for being overwhelmed. If you're juggling caregiving, financial pressures, and societal expectations without sufficient support, your overwhelm isn't a sign of personal failure. It's an appropriate response. If you're comparing yourself to influencers on social media who seem to have it all together, remember that you're often comparing your real, messy human life to someone else's curated highlight reel. So part of the healing work here is not just internal. It's about de-shaming your experience and recognizing that what we call normal stress is often genuinely overwhelming and inappropriate for a human body to carry alone. That's why I always encourage my clients and students to take a zoomed out view. When you feel like you're drowning in normal stress, pause and ask, is this actually normal? Is my response abnormal? Or is this common but deeply unhealthy? That perspective shift can change everything. It can help you reclaim compassion for yourself. Recognizing that your nervous system is responding exactly as it should in an environment that is often stacked against human well-being. And just to be clear, I'm not saying we can't live modern lives or that we should reject all forms of responsibility or challenge. What I'm saying is that we need to recalibrate our expectations of ourselves to align them with what it means to be a human being, not a machine. So let's wrap this up together. We've covered a lot, and I really want to make sure that as you finish listening today, you leave with 2 clear takeaways that you can carry with you, not just intellectually, but somatically, embodied. First takeaway. When you ask yourself, why do I get overwhelmed by normal stress? Recognize that your nervous system may already be starting from a place of depletion and danger before the stressor even arrives. Even small things that seem like no big deal to other people, can feel overwhelming when you're already carrying a chronic baseline of stress, when your body is filled with old danger signals from past trauma, chronic stress, or unsupported environments. It's not about the size of the stressor. It's about the state of your nervous system when that stressor arrives. In this case, the work isn't about fixing yourself or getting better at handling things. It's about tending to your baseline. It's about watering your plant, bringing in more cues of safety, reducing unnecessary cues of danger, learning the language of your nervous system so you can recognize what it's asking for and respond with care, compassion, and attunement. Second takeaway, what we call normal stress often isn't normal or healthy. It's just common. We live in a culture that normalizes overwhelm, dismisses grief, pathologizes burnout, and asks us to override our body's wisdom in service of endless productivity. So part of the work here is reframing that question altogether. Instead of asking, why can't I handle normal stress? You can ask, is this even stress that's fair to ask any human to handle alone? Because sometimes the work isn't about making yourself tougher or more resilient. It's about recognizing that the environment you're in is genuinely unreasonable and honoring the fact that your nervous system is trying to protect you from that. So, as we close this conversation today, I just want to remind you again, your overwhelm is not a moral failure. Your overwhelm is not a character defect. You actually aren't the asshole you feel like you are. It's your body's wisdom speaking. Your nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do to keep you safe, even when the environment around you is unreasonable. And just because this has been your experience up until this moment, doesn't mean it has to be this way forever. This wisdom is here to guide you to places where you do feel safe, where you can navigate stress without losing yourself, and you don't have to navigate it alone. Thank you for being here today, for sitting with this tender topic, for your willingness to stay curious and kind toward yourself as we navigate these complex waters together. Until next time, take care of yourself, tend your baseline, and I'll see you soon. One final note. If you haven't yet, I would absolutely love for you to check out my free online healing program. This program was designed for exactly these kinds of questions, to help people just like you begin to understand how their nervous system works and to introduce some simple, gentle somatic practices that can support you right now, wherever you are on your journey. It's completely free. You can sign up anytime at theholistictraumacoach.com/free. You'll get access to a library of resources you can come back to again and again when you're feeling overwhelmed. Once again, that's theholistictraumacoach.com/free.